Hey everyone. Hey Craig, how you
Hola.
doing?
I'm good. How was everybody?
Number 44.
Yes, 44.
Here
Just a
we
little
are.
teaser again. We're coming up on the big 50 and we're working on something.
Yeah, we got some cool things in the works and including awesome shows, which I suppose is the most important thing because we
Yes.
don't want to be all flash and no bang. Um and this is an interesting one tonight, right? This is going to prove that Craig and Joey's Sinister Mysteries doesn't put all of the sinister on the government and corporations and all that kind of stuff. Sometimes a good bit of the sinister comes as well as the mystery, like what are these guys thinking
Mhm.
from some of the people we're talking about. And the Bundy standoff certainly, I don't know, sir, they qualify.
Definitely. This is kind of as we're this is one of the ones that's actually a really good setup too for January 6th
Oh,
episode
yes, sir. Great point.
because this one this this really brings into me and Joey were, in pre-show talk, like how we want to frame these things. This is for me, this really sets up. This brings in the sovereign citizen movements. This brings in those
Yes.
that thing, and then like I said, it sets up January 6th. And you see this. This is part of the thing. As you've been noticing, like the theory, as we build up this thing, it's showing where there's a common theme, and this is one of those where there's still onus on the government too, because you can definitely tell there's a part of it where they're still hoping for that Bubba effect. They keep poking, they keep hoping that this is going to be the one that makes them snap. This is going to be the one that makes them snap. Because when we talk about some of the stuff that's coming up here in just a couple minutes, you'll see there's one of those things. They were hoping for that one. The guys on the ground are not the ones hoping for it, but the ones behind the scenes are like, come on, if you pull that trigger, then we can go. And then it's like, it just so
What's interesting, though, and all of that is absolutely true, but 20 years on, this very much, folks, you will see how much this is in the continuum of Ruby Ridge, Waco, Oklahoma City, Ted Kaczynski, all the stuff that we have been doing. Craig, we didn't formalize January 6th, but we have an open slot on October 17th. So
yeah,
let's do that. So,
yeah,
folks, just a couple weeks before the election, we're going to tackle January 6th. Why the hell not?
yeah. Let's
Uh,
look at me just making an executive decision live on air.
no,
We'll
that
do
was
it
great. I
live.
was surprised. I like peeked at our calendar. I looked at our calendar and I was like, damn, we never actually wrote it down, but we're going to do it. We're going to do Project 2025 a couple weeks before then. But yeah, right before, so before we run the opening, a little teaser for everyone. I saw some evidence of major governmental organizations handling Bundy and guys like him with kid gloves because they
Hmm.
didn't want another Waco. They didn't want. There's something very surprising that I'll wait until the Las Vegas Police Department in Nevada who got involved. There exists a realm beyond our wildest dreams, a realm beyond reality that the gatekeepers and guardians have always told us consists of nothing but tricks of the eye, weather balloons, swamp gas, sand cranes, fairy tale myths of monsters, crackpot conspiracy theories, and desperate cries for attention.
We know this realm exists, and it's just beyond the horizon. The preset path, the well-worn walkways where the cynics want us to stay.
Instead, give this a listen. Put on your headphones, adjust your volume, close your eyes, and fasten your mental seatbelts because the twilight-tinged turnoff from reality's alluring highway is looming just ahead.
We're about to leave the plane of the easily explained, the couldn't possibly be's, and the no way I just saw what I saw's, for the spaces and places where everything is possible, and if you stay long enough, even probable. We're about to take a journey into the outer realms.
We're about to take a journey into the vast Bureau of Land Management, federally administered
Yeah.
land, huge tracts of lands that are a burr in the butt of the Nevada rancher.
Yeah.
Anybody
For
that
anybody that's
watches,
a different generation will understand BLM. It does not mean Black Lives Matter. So it's like, when they say, so when you
I
see
didn't even think of
BLM,
that.
it's Bureau of Land Management. So if you ever hear us say
Bureau of
BLM,
Land.
has nothing to do with the last couple of years ago with Black Lives Matter.
Thank you.
So,
I wonder if the algorithm's going to be able to go, what are these
well,
two
maybe it'll bring us
middle-aged
views if
white
we just
guys?
put hashtag
Oh,
it
yeah.
BLM
Okay.
and see what happens. Yeah, there you go.
I don't know that these guys are the heroes of the story. All I kept thinking all week was that fans of Yellowstone will really see what's going on here. Yellowstone being in Montana. I believe they're in Montana. But
Yes.
Montana, Wyoming, Utah, Nevada, Arizona, these huge tracts of federally administered land. We probably all know without saying it live on air who originally settled on this land. And so basically what happens is the government has this land. They administer it under the guise of environmental protection, all that kind of endangered species. There's a species of turtle, Craig, that comes up through the years
Yeah.
in these tracts of land, right?
Yeah. There's this the desert tortoise is
Yeah, the
where
desert tortoise, right? Exactly. So, and they collect pretty hefty fees from these ranchers. So, I guess we should do what we usually do. I'll kind of take us through the nuts and bolts. And
yeah, and I'll just kind of like for people, it's like one of the things you got to remember. This isn't, like, especially like this thing. It's not that the BLM is doing, what they did to the Bundys was wrong. It's just this thing, because in this episode we're not going to we're not discussing whether or not the BLM doing causing charging ranging mining rights. That's not what our discussion's about. We can have political discussion about whether or not they should even be involved in this stuff, and that's kind of what this ties into, where the Bundys feel that they shouldn't be involved. And so that's one of these things, but that's not what we're focused on. We're focused on is, this has been accepted precedent. They charge grazing fees, they do these things. And so now when Joey start shop here, just for everybody, just like FYI, that is what it is. It's like, we're not going to delve into, well, this is wrong. That's not what the discussion's about.
It's the reality of life in America. And as an American citizen, we agree to certain rules. I do think it's prescient. First of all, this didn't happen that long ago. I mean, we're talking about 2014 and 2016. This is just not that long ago. And if you think that really our modern era of what we've really been dealing with as a very fractured country began in 2016, then this is very, very topical for that. The reality is, Craig, there is a lot of really pissed off people in this country who feel like the government is way too powerful and overreaches. And these guys may be an extreme example of that, but they are representative in a lot of ways. So this took place over a week. Like I said, it's the Bundy Standoffs, as Craig has right there on the screen for you. And this happened April 5th through 12th, so about a week in 2014 near Bunkerville, Nevada. Now, the Bundys own about 160-acre farm, and Cliven Bundy, Cliven, kind of interesting name. Cliven Bundy is an interesting man. His family purchased this 160 acres in 1948, and they moved from Bundyville, Arizona. So this was a family had been in that land for a long time. The town was named for the family. Deep, deep roots. As a matter of fact, Bundy claims to have inherited preemptive grazing rights on public domain land, which does not exist. Craig, that's an example where this guy is, there's no such thing as inheritable grazing rights. Because some of his, his maternal grandmother's ancestors had kept cattle in the area in 1877. He also claims to be descended from the Mayflower expedition pilgrims. He has 14 children and 60 grandchildren. God bless him. He's still alive till today. This day, he's 76 years old. So this dispute that he had, even though it came to a head in 2014 and really came to a lethal head in 2016, went on for 21 years. culminating in various federal courts, and there were several because each one administered a different pocket of land where his cattle were grazing. They ordered him to pay $1 million in grazing fees and fines. Now, just really quickly, in 1993, he decides to decline his cattle permit. I don't want any more. I'm not buying it, but my cattle are going to continue to graze on BLM, on Bureau of Land Management administered lands, because he says that the land belongs to the state. So sovereign citizen movement, which we'll get into in more detail as we is interesting because they don't recognize any kind of authority above county sheriff. So this is we take care of our own. County sheriff is elected by us. This is the highest authority. And this is a theme that really plays out in some interesting ways. Bundy and his cohorts. So because
I'm sorry. I was just going to say, if I could interject a little bit right there too. What happened on this thing? One of the reasons why he refused to do his payment was because what we talked about, the desert tortoise was being declared an endangered species.
Right.
So where they graze is called the Bunkerville allotment. This is where they're grazing their cattle. Well, part of this allotment was going to be set aside as desert tortoise, habitat, to where he couldn't graze there anymore. And so this was basically, he took this as an affront that this is the feds just trying to circumvent his grazing rights. And so what they did is, because we do this a lot down here in Florida, where we have to have wetland area. So a company like Disney or something will buy 100 acres of wetland and preserve that as wetland, and then they can develop 100 acres.
Right.
So they wanted near Vegas, they wanted to develop 22,000 acres of this tortoise habitat. So they had to set aside other habitat which happened to be the Bundy's thing. And so this was part of the reason why he was like, no, screw you guys. No, I'm not paying this thing. And so that was one of the things, not just the fact that he didn't recognize their authority. It was just also, he was like, no, I'm just, you guys are doing this to me. I'm not paying your fees.
Right. Fair enough. Now, the initial decline of the permit was in 1993. The issue you're talking about happened in 1998. So it developed over time, and it did get to that. In April 2012, this is where it becomes interesting, and this is the ouch from Oklahoma City and from Waco and from Ruby Ridge and all of that. They're going to round up his cattle in 2012, and they call it off. He starts to make violent threats against the BLM. His rhetoric starts to amp up, and they back off. So, which is very interesting, because that was not the case a decade earlier, Craig, or 20 years earlier at all. July 2013, a federal judge orders Bundy to stop trespassing on federally administered land in another set-aside section, which is Gold Butte. There were 3 of them altogether. Now, while all of this is going on, like I said, this is a 21-year dispute. Along the way, the National Park Service was told to back off and leave this guy alone. The U.S. Attorney General's office was told to back off and leave this guy alone. So while they're imposing fines, while they're imposing judgments from all these different federal judges, they're not really doing anything. Meanwhile, Cliven Bundy's getting more and more pissed off, and he starts to adopt this sovereign citizens movement language. He starts talking about a range war. Now, I am a Western nut, watched Yellowstone and all, but the range wars were between the cattle barons, and then in all the different territories, the Wyoming territory, and Nevada territory, all these different territories, as the states came in. So anybody who was a fan of Deadwood on HBO, this is that thing. As the government started to take more and more control, they were pinching down. So this goes all the way back 150 years, really. They were already starting to pinch down on these ranchers who had moved out into the middle of nowhere with the cattle because they wanted to be left the hell alone. I mean, that's what it's about with these guys. They want to be left the hell alone to raise their cattle, bring them to market, get a good price. All this is going on. And Teddy Roosevelt was heavily involved in the cattle trade in the late 1800s. So that's all fascinating. He starts to attract the militia because he's speaking their language. So the sovereign citizen movement presence amongst the militia, and he has 3 sons. prevalent at the time, Ryan, Ammon, and David. And they're backing up their dad. They feel the same. The entire family is aligned and all of that. On March 27th of 2023, no, this is 2014. This is when it starts to happen. So this is a couple weeks before the standoff happens. About 145,000 acres of federal land in Clark County. So it's encompassing Gold Butte, which we've mentioned. Craig mentioned Bunkerville Flats, right? That was the Desert Tortoise, and also Mormon Mesa are declared that they're going to be closed. Nobody can go into them for any reason. This is going to last approximately almost 2 full months. It's going to last about 6 weeks. And they're going to capture, impound, and remove any cattle that are in those areas. Now, the first thing they do, the BLM, and the FBI is sort of in a weird sort of support, maybe not at this time, but the BLM contacts the Nevada governor, Sandoval, I believe his name was, and the attorney general, and they say what they're going to do. And at this stage, the governor agrees to it. So they go ahead. April 5th, the roundup begins. They round up 400 cattle in these three. Doesn't sound like a lot, Craig. 400 cattle on 145,000 acres. Doesn't sound like a ton to me. 90% of these cattle are Bundys. Some of them, they can't read the brand. Some of them, there are no brands. So they could have even been a higher percentage. Now, in the course of rounding up these 400 cattle, one of them charges a fence. Another one dies. Several of them are injured. So the roundup is suspended. But they're holding the cattle.
6 died. 4 of them were euthanized.
Yeah, there you go. So there's this outcry that these cattle are getting murdered that don't belong to them. So things already start to ramp a little. So what happens in a situation like this is that they set up what are called First Amendment zones. So they've learned their lesson. They know that people are going to protest. They know that the media is going to come. So what they do is they go, okay, we're setting up 2 First Amendment protest zones. Only one of them is opened at a time. If you're a protester, you have to be in that zone. That is where you stay. Then there's a setup for the media, and they give them limited camera access, all of this. I don't know how I feel about that, Craig. It doesn't really sound like First Amendment to me.
No, I'm not a big, obviously, you got to have some, this has always been the dilemma for a lot of people. It's like marches, you got, where they set up like this route that you have to go. I mean, I've always been, because our way of law has always been for peaceful assembly. I mean, as long as it's peaceful. I mean, it's just, if it gets out of control, then obviously things get cracked down. So, but I've never been a fan of, you can only go here. That's not our system.
Right.
Public property is public property. That's where foreshadowing for January 6th, public property is public property. It's so.
So the governor agrees with you of Nevada, and he says this is offensive and it's got to stop. So they go, all right, you all can go wherever you want as long as you're peaceful. As long as you're peaceful, you can do this. Now, by this time, the FBI has joined the BLM. And the FBI considers anyone who's part of the sovereign citizen movement to be a domestic terror threat. So now we have ramped up. You start talking about range wars. You start talking about lack of federal authority. Isn't that kind of, Craig, I got to be careful here so we don't get in trouble talking about it. But in some other countries, not quite here now, but in Canada, I believe you can be arrested if you talk about government overreach.
Oh yeah, well, like one of the things that's going on right now in UK, what just happened, the riots that are going on over there. If you say anything about the fact, calling out what's going on, there was just somebody that was talking about what was going on and was sentenced to prison. For talking about it, just talking about it, because they said bringing information about it was hateful. And they have hate speech thing. And that's why, everybody keeps talking about this thing. I hate, and I'll use that string. I hate these things, like these policies that come out. It's like, Okay, nobody likes hateful words. Nobody likes that. But the problem when you do that is who determines what hate speech is the person in power. And as soon as you open that door, it's like, a lot of people got to remember the words, sticks and stones, words cannot, physically hurt you. That's what it needs to be. And that's the thing. First Amendment was to protect speech you don't like, not
Right.
speech you do.
Right.
And that's the problem, I think. And that's one of these things, like what Sandoval was saying, is just like, okay, I know you don't like it, but it's public land, it's public property. They have the right to be there. It's just like, yes, you can keep them away to where you don't have a protester right on top of some investigate. I get it, but it's like, you can't restrict them, like, rope off this little zone and say that's the only place you can stand.
Right. Exactly. So this is fixing to escalate.
Yep.
There's the Oath Keepers are there, White Mountain Militia's there, Praetorian Guard are there, and the FBI just considers these people domestic terrorists. So that's a problem right there. So by April 10th, we're already seeing escalation. A truck gets blocked, rifles get pointed at each other, tasers are used. This was within 5 days. 2 days later, April 12th, a group of the protesters, some of them armed, approached the BLM cattle gather. So they go to the area where the cattle are penned. There are 200 federal agents on scene now. So, Craig, I'm amazed that this thing didn't, because of Waco, because of Ruby Ridge. I think that's why this thing didn't, why it took a while and why only one guy wound up dying ultimately. But on that same day, the armed crowd is carrying banners that say liberty, freedom, for God we stand. They have signs talking about government thugs. This is the kind of thing now and it will eventually get to America probably in the course of the upcoming elections, where you could get in serious friggin' trouble for having a sign like that. You think, sir?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's because this is definitely, because the iconic photo is, it's one of the ones. It's the guy with the rifle through the two Jersey barriers.
Yeah,
and he's just laying there. He's ready, and that's where I've said, several things. The Bubba effect. They were you always say, who's they? We all know who it is. The government, the deep state part government wants to crack down. I mean, you could see this from the Obama term, but they really kicked it into gear. They started with Fast and Furious. They tried to do, they were always wanting to crack down on the Second Amendment. I mean, people don't understand the linchpin. If you want to do just like a little detour here for 2 minutes, the reason like a lot of this global, chess playing can't happen is because of the United States' Second Amendment.
Yeah.
We have so many people that are armed. People say, well, look what's happening in UK. That's coming here. It can't, because there's too many people that are armed. You're not going to have a bunch of people surrounding a car, beating it stuff. You're going to have six protesters dead on the side of the street because they're going to get shot, because we can protect ourselves. And until that happens, and this, coming back to the standoff here, this is what they want. As sad as it sounds, they would love nothing more than to see a federal officer assassinated live on network TV, because then they can say, we don't have any other choice but to do this. Right. And then they crack down. And that's what they want. That's what they want. And that there's some people that were kicking over garbage cans in some boardrooms when it started to ratchet down.
Oh yeah.
And then get out of
it does ratchet up a little more before it ratchets down. And this is interesting. Bundy is more than willing to give them their Bubba moment, as later.
Oh yeah.
He says BLM has no jurisdiction or authority here. And then direct quote, this is April 12th, we're about ready to take the country over with force. So these guys are not shy about throwing the rhetoric, the incendiary rhetoric, as we'll see with the second standoff. So by this time, a highway gets blocked for 2 hours. There's a 3-mile backup. That is certainly a massive disruption. They take position on the high ground at Gold Butte, some of them. The BLM now is talking about tear gas. But here's the interesting thing that I teased in the opening. The Las Vegas law enforcement doesn't wear any protective gear because they don't want to look confrontational.
Yeah.
So the word comes out. I mean, these guys are scared to death, and Bundy and his ilk are loving it because they're almost seeing how far they can push, what they can get away with, testing the ground. And
Yeah.
let's be honest. The government does that all the time.
Oh yeah.
The government throws stuff out there.
And this is one of the first times we're seeing the citizen side do that, and
Yeah.
just kind of pushing that over to the window, seeing how far we can go before.
Right.
And they're realizing it's like, hey, this is what we can get away with, and this is setting up part 2 of tonight's thing. It is just because they're seeing, okay, we could do this, we could do this, we could do this, and then they're like, they're still not giving in, and it's just,
which sends a message about the government and government agencies wanting to be a little bit preemptive. So this is so important in the tapestry of what we've been working on all these months. So that very same day now, Bundy orders County Sheriff Doug Gillespie to confront the federal agents, to disarm them, and to deliver their arms to Bundy within an hour. Craig, that's nuts. You go to the county sheriff and you go, I want you to go over to them FBI guys. I want you to disarm their asses, and I want you to give me all their weapons. You got an hour to do it, Sheriff, because you're here on our dime.
I know, and I was trying to figure that out too. It's just, and I can't find anything where he thought he had the ability as a private citizen for a county sheriff to go disarm a federal agent, and not only just disarm them. Okay, maybe that's what the county sheriff does have that ability, but the fact that then he's saying, like, telling the county sheriff, like you said, then bring the guns to me. I don't know. I can't find any precedent where that would ever be the thing where the county sheriff is required to bring firearms to a private citizen.
Right. So here's my feeling. The Flavor Aid, that's a sovereign citizen movement drink, right? Like, we don't have to pay taxes, and the county sheriff is the highest authority in the land because he's the dude. He's the highest up dude that citizens elected. So that's what I was saying, my dime. I really think Bundy thought, this is a state and county matter. I pay your salary and you work for me. And he believed it and may still believe it to this day. So Gillespie does not comply. And Bundy's real disappointed, and he even says it on Hannity a week later. He said it right on national television. I guess you guys can find the tape. He goes, this is what I want him to do, and he didn't do it. And frankly, I'm disappointed. What the sheriff does do is he negotiates between Bundy and the newly confirmed BLM director. So I was thinking of Waco, where Janet Reno gets in and like, oh, here's the file. Welcome to your new job. So this guy just got in at the BLM and got pretty aggressive. Really, now that I think about it, Craig, you're newly appointed, but you're the guy who orders this cattle roundup.
Yeah.
So I guess maybe he wanted to make a name for himself. So anyway, it's clear that people are pointing guns at each other. Highways are getting blocked. There's more and more rifles around. So they de-escalate immediately. They release Bundy's cattle back to him. It basically, as far as the BLM and the FBI are concerned, it's kind of over now. There's going to be legal ramifications, but boots on the ground, it's over. And the sheriff, interesting, Craig, listen to this. You wonder why Bundy felt the way he felt. The sheriff said that it was his duty to protect the citizens from federal agents. So he was part of the rhetoric. He was part of the mindset.
Yeah, that's in. I don't know if it's if it's like given away, but if you forward to today, 10 years later, the cattle are still there.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So
and no fines have been paid or anything.
No, it's one of those. So it's kind of like, so you're looking at, and I kind of went with this aspect too. It's like, okay, so you say that he owes these grazing rights. Just this is one of those, spending $1 to earn a dime type things. How much money did the federal agencies, all these agencies combined, spend on this endeavor to round up the cattle all over these grazing fees, to where it had to have been easily 8-10 times the amount that they say he owes?
Yeah, I would guess if you had 200 agents on the ground.
Yeah, I mean, it's got to be this astronaut. So you look at it, what was the point?
It's a great point.
I mean, it's just, yeah, I mean, you can see why, for anybody that's not from the West, that's where I was born and raised. That stuff, everything's really spread out. Like things are really, it's a different, especially in the rural part. It's a whole different mindset. You rely on each other. You do a lot of that. When you're not in the city, and so people kind of stick together. And so, like, if you see the neighbors across there, it's like most of them would see Clive and get, they're, pardon my language, goddamn feds are rounding up Cliven's cattle. It's like, mount up, boys. And they're grabbing their rifles and they get out there. And it's not. And it was more like, we'll ask questions later. We're going to get those cattle back, and that's what it is. It's like, it's an injustice, because it's one of those things. Like when you watch Yellowstone, you see these things are not just mere cows going around. I mean, this is people. This is basically like somebody coming and stealing your 401k.
Yeah.
This is their livelihood. This is their
yeah. We're huge consumers of beef, and I think too what we see in 2016 is that ranchers from different states are all going, well, how long before they come after me?
Yep. That was actually really talked about back there, Oregon, and and that's part too. A lot of people were just like, wow, it's like, what if they come after, what are we going to do here if they come after this, because that comes back to the desert tortoise. And that was one of the things, because that started in 91. And that's like the shot, because a lot of people see a lot of the stuff, you may not notice it here, but a lot of these guys, they are on top of these things. Like they see these things that go through in these agricultural commissions. So when this stuff went to 91, the Bundys already knew this was coming. It was like, this was in the works. And so they were already trying to fight it. And so by the time it actually happened, I think 7 years had already gone by.
Yeah.
And that's what happens in a lot of these places, where they'll do watersheds and all of a sudden they'll shut down this thing because we've got a fish that needs to be protected, or some spotted croaking frog that needs water. Well, some rancher down the right now doesn't have water for his fields. Right. And so he's, and this causes these kind of problems.
Yeah. And that is historical. That is just from the time of westward expansion, that kind of thing, damming up a stream to screw the guy down. Yeah. So it's fascinating. It's really kind of fascinating. This country is pockets of very different cultures.
Yep.
It really is. So this becomes highly, highly political. Now, the militias remain. They stick around for several weeks. They set up checkpoints. They guard the ranch. And the rhetoric is dangerous. So in a perfect world, everybody would have left. But it didn't happen that way. So this becomes very polarizingly, just like with January 6th and just about anything anymore. So Democratic Senator Harry Reid calls them domestic terrorists. But Republican Senator Dean Heller, same state, they're patriots. So all about constituency and who you're catering to. That's the reality, especially with the senators, 2 from every state, and it's all about constituency. April 18th, 1,500 Bundy supporters get together. They eat a bunch of his beef. They read cowboy poetry, and they wear domestic terrorist name tags. So they're still, they're kind of like, okay, if you want the Bubba moment, we'll give it to you. So Bundy is praised by a ton of Republicans. This makes perfect sense. It's about constituencies and it's about philosophies and views, and that's how the party system works. Glenn Beck and Hannity both have him on the show. He talks very frankly on both shows about many of the things we talked about, his disappointments with Sheriff Gillespie and all that. Hannity goes right out and mentions Ruby Ridge and Waco. So Hannity makes it part of the narrative. It is anyway, but he really makes it part of the narrative. And Bundy on TV calls again for county sheriffs all around America to disarm federal agents. A very incendiary language on the evening talk show. But then on April 19th, Bundy makes a tactical error. He can't help himself. Craig, he kind of reminds me of Grandpa on Duck Dynasty.
Yeah.
He got in the spotlight, and boy, when he opened his mouth after a couple of years, boy, he said some incendiary stuff. So Bundy is clearly a racist. He says, look, it hasn't worked out well for the blacks at all. They're unhappy, they're unskilled, they're poor. Maybe slavery was a good thing. So, of course,
Yeah,
every
they had
Republican
families, they had a roof, they had, it was bad.
Yeah.
It was bad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So here we go. Malheur National Wildlife Refuge occupation. So this takes place about 18 months later. It's January 2nd through February 11th. 40 days, the biblical 40 days. Probably a coincidence. We don't know. We're looking into it. We're pretty sure it's very biblical 40 days. Sorry. Okay. Sorry. I don't do that all the time, but quite frankly, it was very biblical. Most biblical standoff ever in history.
It's a
I
tremendous
brought it to
standoff.
an end.
Tremendous.
From Trump era. It was huge.
Yeah.
I called him up. I said, Bundy's.
Well, that's it. You said that too. Is like I said, it was when we were talking about this part of the show. I mean, it's like for everybody, with everything that's gone on, this feels like this is just like ancient history. We're talking about this is right before Trump got elected.
Yeah.
Yeah, this isn't that long ago. I mean, this was just something where it's like this. So much stuff has happened in the last, basically 10 plus years that it's great. Yeah, this is the best standoff ever. It's a tremendous.
It was tremendous. It was a tremendous standoff.
There's a lot of beautiful things that happened in this standoff. It's a tremendous standoff. And then it's just in his normal fashion. Yeah, but we don't like you. Yeah, this is the worst standoff ever. I don't like this one.
I said to Sleepy Joe, let's have a standoff. He wanted to have a sleep off. I said, Joe, I haven't slept since 1993, Joe. Can't have a sleep off. So anyhow, now it's super topical. I mean, this mindset is still around. So Charles let us know that the current grazing fee is $14 per year per cow. And most of these guys got a crap ton of cows.
Yeah. A lot of people, when you do the math, they're like, okay, well, it's not really that much. To a lot of these guys, like, and this coming from that part, it's one of those, it's public land. This is thing. Why are we paying for use of the public land? It's like, These are cows. This isn't like they're building a resort and, they're paying. No, the cows are just free range, grazing, keeping down the brush, so it helps knock down the fire fuel and stuff. So this is one of those, and it's just like with the buffalo, the normal thing, if you do it like you're supposed to, when some of these ranchers do, it naturally tills the ground and it keeps you from having a dust bowl. Like what was happening. Then when you killed off all the buffalo, that's why you had the Great Dust Bowl. So there's a lot of them. Like I said, I don't want to, because there are the ones that they could care less, what damage they do, they just let them free. But that's the thing. And so even though it seems like a small thing, a lot of them are like, it's the point of me having to fork over $6,000, $7,000 a year to the feds for the right to just let the cattle roam around and chew on wild grass.
Mow the land. Mow the grass, which is what more than one Republican congressman said. They're mowing the damn grass.
Yeah,
they're doing you a favor. So January 2nd of 2016, there's a protest rally about these things in Burns, Oregon. So there you go, Craig. Were you living in Oregon in 2016? Oh
yeah, no, I born and raised in Oregon until I moved down here, and I moved down here to Florida in at the beginning of 2018.
Oh, okay. So how far away was this from you?
This was less than 2 hours.
Damn, in your backyard.
Yeah, so this the Malheur Wildlife Refuge, Harney County. So that's right. That's down there. So yeah, it was a short drive. I mean, I actually almost drove there to go see this.
Wow.
While I was going live, because I was just like, this, you're seeing it, all this stuff. I'm like, I know where this place is. That's the. I mean, it. So all these things that we're going to be talking about, I know these roads. I know where they were driving. I know these things. So this is out in the middle of nowhere. Basically. Burns is a small community. Most of these communities are just, as we're talking about the people here, when you get over, especially like rural eastern side of Oregon, I would say the liberal Democrat to like conservative Republican it's at least 10-1, if not more, for Republican to Democrat. So these counties are deep red. I mean, there's So when you see these people like, oh, I want these people to go away, they had to find these people.
Mm-hmm.
This, so when you're watching these news reports, this is a small sampling of the entire community. So they had to physically find these people. This wasn't something where you just go down, like you go down in Portland or you go down in some, major town. No, they had to find these outraged people.
Yeah.
And so, because most of the people were on the other side.
It's like when the Tea Party movement rose up and they only let stupid people on camera, like the liberal.
People are dressed like Statue of Liberty, the corner hat. Yeah, those are the only people they showed. It's like they didn't care about the whole lower taxes. I mean, it makes like, no, we got to show the.
I think they do it with Trump people too. They only show like the lowest common denominators. They don't. Yeah,
well,
but
with the big old glasses with the big streamers going like this. That's the people that they show.
Can't answer basic civics question. That's the people they put on camera. So these guys, who include Ryan and Ammon Bundy, they call themselves the Citizens for Constitutional Freedom. Sounds good.
Yep.
Sounds good. We're all for. They did the same thing to the unions. Charles said, "Yeah, that's what they did." They paint it the way they want it to be seen. That's the job of the media. I wrote to several of my close friends this week. Craig, you were one of them, because I heard the guys on Valuetainment say it's not an election; it's a marketing campaign, and that just made so much sense to me. But so let's keep going here. So what are these Citizens for Constitutional Freedom? What are they protesting? They're protesting federal control of public land. Sounds very familiar. So this is the same exact thread that Cliven was weaving. But also they're protesting the imprisonment on arson charges of 2 local ranchers, Dwight Hammond, 73 years old, and his son, Steve. They say to the feds, look, these were controlled burns, and that's all that we were doing. We're keeping the place free of predators, and we're maintaining the property. We're being good custodians. But they are convicted of arson on federal lands managed by our old friends, the Bureau of Land Management. Prosecutors argued the fires were set to cover up illegal poaching. So this, Craig, to me, is definitely a sinister mystery on the usual players.
Yeah, this is normal practice.
These guys.
Yeah, this is normal practice over there. Anybody that's out in the wooded areas, it's like, because if you don't take care of the underbrush and this fuel that builds up, and that's one of the problems. Like everybody sees right now, and you'll scream global warming. See, this is what happened. A lot of this is, like I said, I don't want to waste too much time. I'll do it real quick here. It's because so many times, like, federal policies are, you can't do this, you can't do this, you can't do this. There's so many restrictions. So beetle kill, bug kill, disease, all this underbrush just keeps piling up. You can't do anything with it because you're restricted. And so now what happens, we get a lightning strike, and you have got all this dry, lovely stuff for it to burn, and it just races through there. And so people see these massive wildfires and they go, see, look at all this climate change. No, it's because we didn't know what we were doing back in the early, hundreds of years ago when we were planting the same tree. It was great for timber harvesting, but it's really bad when it comes to diseases, because a bug can just fly through the entire thing and just kill a whole stand. And so to go to these guys, this is the thing. They were taking care of underfuel. They were doing the stuff. They were burning these piles, and they got convicted of it. And so now the Bundys see an opportunity.
Right.
Ta-da! And here we are.
Here's the bitch of it, just to stay on the Hammonds for a minute. In October, so they get a light sentence. So they've been made an example of. They get a light sentence. They get out of jail pretty quickly. October 2015, a federal judge orders them returned to prison to serve their mandatory minimum sentence of 5 years under the Anti-Terrorism and Effective Death Penalty Act of 1996.
Yeah.
For burning some brush, suddenly you're a terrorist.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's what it is. It's this thing. It's something that has been that way. So yeah, this is, and So this is one of the ones like where I told you, I think this is where the sinister part of the entire night, this is where it really starts coming in. Because this is clearly somebody is being made an example of, because this is I mean, who would think, how do you go from somebody who clearly was clearing out land, doing this kind of stuff, to suddenly you're a domestic terrorist? So most likely they were tied to some group and they were being made a point of. So I'm not sure. I didn't look in to see like what, if they were a part of tied to a militia, like Oath Keeper, or if they're something like that. But they were definitely made as, they were the patsy. They were basically, you guys are the fall guys for this.
And keep in mind that Dwight Hammond is 73 years old.
Yeah.
And you're sending him to prison for 5 years for burning some brush? Yeah, it's bullcrap. So see how upset we are. The guys who are really living it and are still stung, Ryan and Em and Bundy, they seized the headquarters of the wildlife refuge. And they demand that the federal government relinquish control of the refuge and return the land to local residents. So they've made their demand. So January 26th. So this goes on for weeks. It's just a standoff. It doesn't escalate that much. So word gets down to the feds that all the key players, so Ryan and Em and Bundy, another guy named Ryan Payne, ex-U.S. Army vet and militia member, he's in one of these two cars. And then there's a man named Robert, I believe. Lavoy is his middle name or nickname, is what he went by. Finicum. Now, Finicum is interesting. He is an Arizona rancher. So this is what I'm saying. The call went out to all the ranchers. Our time is coming. So you got this Arizona rancher. We got the Nevada ranchers. They're all up here in Oregon. He's a no-income cattle rancher. I don't know if that makes him a hobbyist. I don't know what it makes him. He takes in orphaned kids.
Yeah,
right? He's a foster parent.
What he did, like a little bit with him, is, so he was a cattle rancher too, but he wasn't making a lot of money at that. So what they did is he started basically a troubled boys, home. So he brought in, so if I remember the total right, it was like $112,000 or something like that a year was the income he was getting as this foster thing. So he was bringing in, and so there was never any accusation like he was doing something wrong with these kids. But what happened is, because he got involved with this, they stripped that. They took that away. And so now he has that income's taken away from his family. And the only reason it's taken away is because he was expressing, and that's, I said, I don't want this to come off like I said, these guys are all victims and stuff. I said, that's not the point. It's just, he was doing what he felt was a First Amendment, exercising his First Amendment rights, like standing up for those rights. So whether or not that would, so I don't know why that was at the time, why it wasn't just done like, hey, we got to pay attention to this. But I'm not sure why they just pulled it, because that doesn't seem to be in the best interest of these kids.
No, because
to yank them out of that facility.
Right. And these facilities are not unusual. Tanya and I have some very dear friends, and for years, that's how they made their living. These troubled boys, they would take them in. It was a foster home. They would have 12, 14 boys. It was he and his wife. He was a licensed counselor, and they would look after these boys while they were getting themselves straight, and they would teach them some skills and help settle their lives. So great point, Craig. All these players are in these cars, and then there's also these two women who are tagging along with them as well. And I know that sounds absolutely terrible to the women in our audience. I apologize, but the role of those two women, Cox and the other woman, Craig, is not particularly clear to me.
No, I mean, it seems so terrible. Mormon, so. Now, I don't know what the roles are. I know he's married to, he was married to Dorothea Jeanette, Finicum was a wife. I don't know if she was just joined in the movement. I don't think that there was anything like she was involved with it. I mean, I don't know. It doesn't say, because because as we get into this, there was two women, Shauna Cox and Victoria Sharp, that were in the vehicle.
Right. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, we'll get to that here, because we still got to get into where everybody refers to him as Tarp Man.
Oh, I missed that. I'm
Yeah.
ready to go on the incident. I'm at
Okay.
January.
Yeah. So what happened is, so for anybody that remembers this, there's a really good one. Did you happen to watch that documentary that I shared with you?
No.
Yeah. That one, I recommend people watch that. That was actually pretty well done. It wasn't
What was
slanted
that
to
called? No
really.
Man's Land?
Yeah. No Man's Land. You can watch it on YouTube for free. He went during all the press when they'd interview, he was in one of those little like pop-up tent things, and because it was getting into the cold November, December, he was wearing like he'd have a blue tarp over him to
Oh,
help keep
okay.
warm, and so he became nicknamed as the Tarp Man
Oh,
because
right.
he became the vocal. Amon Bundy, he would come out sometimes at press conferences. He would kind of do stuff, but the guy that you'd normally see making the comments and stuff live on TV would be Lavoy.
Right.
He actually became the de facto like press secretary for the
Yeah,
movement.
he was their spokesman. And you could find pictures. He always had a Colt 45 on his hip.
Mm-hmm.
He
Yeah,
was a
he was
cowboy.
open
Big old
carry. Yeah,
cowboy hat. Absolute cowboy.
I mean,
Yeah,
in your
go ahead.
research, and I'm trying to remember, I think because a lot of people talked about, they destroyed the place. The only thing I can remember them doing was cutting wire on fences that they said was an illegal fence.
Yes. Right, which is part and parcel with the thing. No, they were not. No, they were
But
not
they didn't
destroying.
destroy. Yeah, they weren't destroyed. It wasn't like they left the place trash. They even show, like during the doc, they even show there's like open up a room that refuge. There's brand new stuff. It's like you can definitely tell this is a clear cut case of government waste. They
Yeah.
got brand new, all this stuff, and just this thing's out in the middle of nowhere, people. This isn't like this is some hundreds of thousands of people have access to this every day. No, this is remote.
Yeah. So what happens is the feds get word that on January 26th, these guys are driving to a meeting about 2 hours away. They're going to meet with a sheriff named Palmer, I believe in Grant County, a sheriff who's sympathetic to their cause, and they're trying to figure this out. So these are the major spokesmen. This would be like if David Koresh or if Randy Weaver and his son got in a car to go during the standoff, went to go meet with somebody. Now, the feds set up shop in now Craig has already told you several times this is remote. They pick for their roadblock the most remote section that has absolutely no cell phone service at all. And that's where they set up. So they are going to trap these guys, they're going to detain them, and they're going to bring this to an end. Now, the major players here are the FBI and the Oregon State Police. So just keep that in mind. So it's two cars. Finnegans SUV, white SUV, which is really, they call it an SUV, Craig, but it was really a capped pickup truck. Older, white, capped pickup truck. He's in the car with Ryan Bundy and Ryan Payne, who's this ex-military vet, who's a militia guy, and these two girls, Shauna Cox and Victoria Sharp. In the car just behind them is a guy named Mark McConnell. Now, Mark McConnell is a government informant. He is unarmed. He's the only one in both cars that's unarmed, and he was never arrested or charged, but he's a government informant. So it made more sense, Craig. You and I had a very rare meeting to just kind of talk about this because this was a different kind of episode. So we had a phone meeting yesterday, and I said, oh, McConnell really was talking about how I'm getting ahead of it a little, so I'll just wait. But keep in mind that McConnell paints a portrait that when you watch the video, and I watched the video over and over and over and over and over. There's two videos. I watched them both over and over and over, trying to make sense of this. It is not what McConnell describes because I forgot for a second he was a government informant. So, of course, he's going to slant this thing like Finnegans was just absolutely crazy. So when they're stopped almost right away, Ammon gets out of McConnell's car and he just surrenders peacefully. So they take him into custody. Again, McConnell is a government informant, so he's not arrested. He's not charged. Lavoy Finnegans stops his car. And when you watch the video, so there's a helicopter that takes overhead video of this entire thing. He stops for about 7 minutes. He keeps the car, the SUV running. I'm going to put this up here. Craig's got some images that he wants to share. This is where it culminates. So you can see from the helicopter footage, you can find it. Just put Finicum shooting. And you can see the whole thing. It runs about 24 minutes total. So anyway, in August 2015, like Craig had said, Finicum decided to cease complying with the terms of his grazing permit. Inspired, he said it right out. I was inspired by the Bundys, so it's no surprise that he joins them. Okay, so the first thing that Oregon State Police do is they fire a 40 millimeter plastic tip rounded pepper spray, which hits the truck. And Craig, I don't know if you have that other image where it shows where the truck got hit, but it got hit basically on the roof, on the back roof.
I don't think I've got that one.
Okay, so at some point after they shoot the pepper spray or whatnot,
Oh, actually, I may have that one.
This Ryan Payne, ex-military vet, militia leader, he gets out of the car. And everybody's surprised that he does it. But he surrenders. He has a come-to-Jesus moment, and he just surrenders. Ryan Bundy, Shauna Cox, and Victoria Sharp are still in the car. At this point, Cox and Bundy start taking cell phone videos, and I believe it's Cox's video that's out on the interwebs. They're yelling out. Ryan Bundy yells out, who are you? Identify yourself. Identify yourself. Identify yourself. They say, we're Oregon State Police. So Finicum says, I'm going to meet Grant County Sheriff Palmer. And the roadblock, Craig, my understanding was the roadblock was originally supposed to be in Grant County. But because Palmer was sympathetic to them, they went with a county that was sympathetic to the feds.
Well, that was when, I mentioned that to you too, where it came near. This is part of the one to me is this is so remote. They could have easily picked these as soon as they drove off of the Malheur Refuge. This wouldn't have been an issue. This, right. I said, so this has been one of the dilemmas of it. Why did they wait to get them to such a remote location to do it? And the only thing I could figure out is that one, it's like you had said it too, is this, there was no cell signal.
Right.
There was no population. So you're controlling all these aspects. So you're not going to have the camera footage, it's like people are, you got to have all these angles. I mean, we still got some because people still recorded. That image right there shows where the people were in the car too. That one I got.
And so he's yelling out, and it's very it's very unsettling when you see it, but he's yelling out the car, you back down or you kill me now. Go ahead, put the bullet through me. I don't care. Put the laser right on my forehead. I don't care. I'm going to meet the sheriff. You do as you damn well please. So he's really provoking him. He's pissed off Finicum, and he sounds serious as a heart attack, dude.
Yep.
So this goes on for about 7 minutes, and then he hits the gas. It's basically a steady incline. I would say maybe a 12-14% grade, just steady. He's flooring it. There's snow everywhere, but the roads are absolutely clear. But then right around the corner, there's the roadblock right up ahead of him. So he comes around the corner. He's really hauling the mail because he's on the steady grade. So it was very, very, my point is, it was very carefully decided where they were going to set up this roadblock.
Yep.
He swerves to avoid a spike strip, but Craig, if you have that other one, we can show them where it was almost like a triangle of trucks. So even without the spike strip, he wasn't getting through. Through. So he goes into a snowbank, and he comes out of the truck.
Yeah, it's right there.
And McConnell says that he charges the cops. He doesn't. He doesn't charge the cops. He comes out of the car, and actually his arms are out. Let me get this up. His arms are out perpendicular like this. And he's talking to him, and you see two guys, one from the side, one from the other side, have their guns pointed. They're coming towards him into the frame. And at one point, he kind of goes like he was going to cross draw. So if he had a pistol in a holster on his left hip, it's like he's going to cross draw, but then he goes down. And it's 3 bullets to the back. One in between the shoulder blades, and the other
Yeah,
two.
I've got that photo too.
Yeah, one kind of like on the trap and one like almost on the
Yeah.
neck. So he was shot in the back, which is damn unfortunate that it wasn't the guy
So
that he was facing.
I wish
And
it
I
was.
have real problem. Yeah, there you go. Oh, so the lower. So he could have. The thing is, this is from the back. So if he was reaching back for the wound, he'd actually should be reaching with his left to his right. So there are a lot of unanswered questions. Craig and I talked about this a lot. We, of course, encourage everybody to go and watch the videos, see what you can make of it. It's highly disturbing to me, Craig, that he was shot in the back when there were guys facing him.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. Because if he truly was reaching for a weapon, like they said, the ones in front would have been the ones to identify that thing. I mean, that was one of the theories that was prevalent of where there was some, like they that's where the sniper theory is, come in. Somebody shot him. He was reacting to getting shot, and that's when he reached down, and that's when they opened fire and basically killed him at that point.
Right.
But that he was doing that, here I am, just go right here, and all of a sudden you see him like reach, and that was the thing. Is like they said, is through even Samantha I think that's right, Samantha, right? In her recordings, the way he was talking, he didn't actually ever seem like he was getting ready to draw his weapon. Like he was, he was basically, it was more like, if you're going to, like you see those people that want, if you're going to shoot me, shoot me. It's not one of those that looks like they're going to pull a weapon. And so
No.
that's been the like the smoking gun for those people that say he was taken out. And that's, so that's
Right.
That's been on that side. So
he was not wearing his 45. And what they found was in his left coat pocket, they found a 9mm Ruger SR9. Now, again, you're not going to cross draw for a gun that's in your pocket. You're going to use the hand on that side.
Yeah, it's going to be really weird trying to grab it out of a pocket. Yeah.
No, you wouldn't. You'd have to fold the pocket over, but there would be the weight of the gun. A Ruger's not a light weapon. So, that's tugging down on the jacket. It just doesn't make sense. I will float the theory, just a theory. I'm not a criminal psychologist, nor do I play one on TV. It almost felt like he was willing to be a martyr. Death by cop to maybe touch the thing off. Because what he was saying was inflammatory. Put the laser right here and just shoot me.
Yeah, he was basically setting himself up, which he did. He basically, in this sets up. This is kind of one of the things that really, comes into play for less than 4 years later.
Yeah,
or maybe just a little over 4 years later. No, it'd be less than 4 years.
He dies on scene. And there's conflicting statements between McConnell, who's a government informant, and through the government agents. And here's something that's really bothersome because none of these things are clean, which is really unfortunate. But we just see it constantly. No matter, it seems, whatever, it's not clean. The Oregon State Police use silver bullet casings. The FBI uses brass casings. This is similar to what happened with the movie Rust, with the difference in the colored casings, if people followed that whole thing. The Oregon police saw those brass casings in the snow, which means that 2 FBI agents or 1 FBI agent fired their weapons. Those bullets disappeared. Those casings disappeared.
Yep. And that's been the thing about the, he got hit. And that's what he was reacting to. And that.
Yeah. That sucks. That clouds what's already, a tragic and mysterious thing. February 10th. So what happens is, by February 10th, there's still occupiers at the refuge, even after all of this. And the Bundy brothers have been arrested. Ryan Payne's been arrested, so on and so forth. A guy named Peter Santilli, who was a radio commentator, he's been arrested.
Yeah, because these four they're basically like they were kind of like on a mission to, reach out to like, try to resolve this, with that that sheriff.
With the county sheriff again.
Yep. And that's,
The
so, but
highest
yeah, they're
recognized
basically, they're basically sent as they were going as an envoy, and then it got, it's, in this thing, don't shoot the messenger, literally shot the messenger. Yeah.
And really, Craig, it begs the point, why the hell, if you know that they're going to go see the sheriff in Grant County, why the hell don't you just go to Grant County and participate in the sheriff helped bring the 2014 one to it. So that plays into your Bubba theory. So February 10th, Cliven posts on his Facebook page that he's on his way to the refuge. And he posts, "Wake up, patriots. Wake up, militia. It's time." So this is the message he sends out. Finicum's dead in the snow. And Bundy's being super, super incendiary. 2 hours later, no surprise, he's arrested by the FBI at the Portland International Airport, and he's put in a county jail, which I find poetic justice, Craig.
Yeah.
That he's under the care of the only authority that he recognizes as a legitimate authority. The next day, the final four occupiers willingly go into custody. Within a week, Cliven is indicted on 16 felony charges. His two sons are, Payne is, the Santilli guy. March 3rd, 14 more guys are charged. Santelli is the first one. He just pleads guilty to felony conspiracy to injure and impede a federal officer. At one point in all of this, one of the cars came really close to taking out a federal officer. But it was more about the snow conditions than any kind of.
But just like anybody that knows, like, it's like when you have those things, you come up with pretty much every charge you can think of, and just hope in hopes that something sticks.
And it did not.
No.
So
that's the crazy part.
The jury acquitted the brothers and the five others of any kind of conspiracy. January 8th, 2018, so it took a little time. A judge dismissed with prejudice the criminal case. So what does it mean to dismiss with prejudice? It means this cannot be retried. It cannot be appealed. You cannot bring these guys in for a different shade of the same gray on these crate. It is declared over. It is declared over and effing done. And all of the charges against Cliven, Ammon, Payne, all of them. Then, talk about topical. President Trump, with his privilege to grant pardons, in July of 2018, grants full pardons to the Hammonds. Which is just wow. Yeah, which is wow. Just said, this is total BS. These guys are done. They're out of prison now. They're done. That's it. So that was an interesting use of a president's pardon. And as of September of 2023, so just shy of a year ago, the Bundy thing is still going on. There's still lawsuits. They're still trying to find a way to try these guys. So some group comes up on some kind of weird thing about desert turtles or environmental harm, and they go, no, it was dismissed with prejudice. So, and Bundy never paid a fine. So all of this, one guy who I guess didn't get the memo, just stay the course because it's going to be all right, brother. This Peter Santilli pled guilty to felony conspiracy. It just didn't have. I was
surprised that, that those ones weren't in the pardoning either.
Yeah,
I was actually surprised that that wasn't just like a blanket anybody that was convicted of this thing, but it was probably one of those ones where some blood, somebody must pay, and so this happened to be.
Well, the difference is the Hammonds were actually in prison. And this poor SOB is now pushing 80 years old, right? The senior Hammond is pressing 80 years old. So they needed to get him out of prison. Everybody else are doing their thing. I mean, Bundy has 14 kids and 60 grandkids.
Yeah.
So they're raising cattle in a big way. So that is, that's the show.
No, it's he's we mentioned, like I said, there's a lot of these people have like the Mormon ties to them, too, especially in this area. And that was one of the things too, is like even his niece is currently, she is in the House of Representatives for Utah.
That's right.
And so, yeah, Celeste Malloy is her name. And so I said, so she's, so he even has tie, so there's all these, so there's a lot of family here. Cause like I said, when you have, when you have all these kids, all these kids, all these grandkids, it's pretty easy to have, because 14 children, good God.
Yeah. That's quite a pack. So in 2 weeks, very sinister, very mysterious, the Las Vegas shooting.
It's going to be a big one.
Happened. Well, that was 2017, correct, sir?
Yes.
So kind of on the heels of this, and it rose up. A lot of people died at a country music thing I think by Mandalay Bay.
Mm-hmm.
And in Las
October
Vegas,
1st.
And it just went out of the damn news in a heartbeat. And the casing spray on the carpet in the hotel room made no sense. It's going to be an interesting one.
Yeah, this is definitely one where we're back on. This was a setup. This was definitely, once again, you can, like you said, like at the beginning of the show, this is where I said, you can kind of see a pattern here. It's like they're constantly trying to find something that's going to be, and that's where a lot of people have been, are some of these people that are doing these shootings, are they being spun like the MK Ultra? Or, is there something going on? Because, as we were growing up, we all had guns in the trucks, driving around. You remember, going to high school, guys had nobody was shooting up schools. No, and everybody had weapons. I said, now all of a sudden, so there's something about that going on, but this is one where it just, from the start to the finish, nothing makes sense. As we talk about it, you talk about an area, if there's one area in the country that has probably got the most surveillance, it's going to be a place like Vegas. There's cameras everywhere on every corner. And I go, and how we have something this tragic, and we don't even have a still image. If anybody can prove me wrong right now, bring that picture so I can see it. I've never seen the luggage cart with all the guns and the weapons and stuff being wheeled into the casino. I've never seen these photos. So I'm sure somebody's got, so any of our hacker friends out there that are watching that have got these photos, please send them over to Sinister Mysteries so we can get this information out.
It'll be the greatest scoop. It's going to be the greatest hour and a half on the Vegas shooting ever.
That's going to be a big one.
It's around, it's around the same time, Craig, and you got to be really careful about Sandy Hook because of, Alex said some really stupid stuff.
Oh, he did. He did.
I'm worried about him drinking out of the liquor bottle at 5:00 in the morning during some of his recent interviews. I'm worried about Alex, but that was around the time of the Colorado shooter, right? The whole Joker thing with the Batman that went out of the news really quick. And when that kid showed up for the trial, he did not look like the kid who was posted in the photos. Then we got this other kid, what just happened about a month ago that everybody's forgotten about already.
Yeah, but it's an ex-president, has just had attempt on his life, and I'd say we still haven't. Nobody's being held accountable. I said it's like you can see these things. And Charles, if you got that information, let me know. I have no idea who was in the upper floors of that hotel. I haven't really done. So if you got that, let us know. But
friend of the show, Joe Red Miles, has already sent me a ton. He went through all the Las Vegas newspapers at the time digitally. He got really hooked into it when we made the announcement. So I have a lot of data to sort through about the guy who they said did it. So Andy says the Saudis had control of the upper floors of the hotel.
Wow.
I don't know. It's a sinister.
But yeah, that's the thing. It's that's going to be a good one because this is one where there's more mystery than there is fact.
Yeah, for sure. I'm probably going to start my research next week, because next week, guys, I'm going solo and I'm going to lighten it up a little. My very popular presentation on Supernatural 66, hauntings and UFOs and all kinds of crazy stuff on the Mother Road. I'm going to take you through a big slideshow and show you if you're going to be hitting the road on the Mother Road on Route 66, cool haunted places and sites of UFO crashes and things like that. So, and then we'll be back for the heavy duty. And then, yeah, we got Project 2025 and we got January 6th. And
January 6th.
I have to be forgetting something, I think, sir. Project 2025. Oh, Teal.
Yeah,
The Vance backer. And we're going to talk about the surveillance state and CIA, venture capitalists funding Silicon Valley, and it is pretty crazy. It is pretty crazy and super topical. And you want to talk about, them arresting people for what they say. If anybody's going to do it, it's going to be these cats are going to put that infrastructure in place. So, all right, guys, thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you soon. Stay mysterious.
Yes, stay
Greg,
mysterious.
I gotta tease the outro.
Yep, don't be sinister.
Mysterious.
Stay mysterious.
Oh yeah, that's right. That's the first part.
Yeah, don't be sinister. Stay mysterious.
Right. And don't reinvent the dinosaur. I hear that some cats are doing that. It's a bad idea.
Yeah, nobody seems to remember the documentary Jurassic Park. Maybe it's like it doesn't work.
Andy, I hope you join us in 2 weeks. Andy seems to be informed on this here. Another hotel was full of FBI. So there you go.
Yeah, this is gonna be a good one. Yeah, definitely tune in.